Segras with the left. Big-time score at Villanova.
And Segras with those active hands knocking away that basketball and then running the floor.
The security camera footage from that freezing February night captured something that would remain etched in Caitlin Clark's mind for months. A small figure, no older than 9, huddled against the cold brick wall near Gainbridge Fieldhouse, using a torn Indiana Fever poster as a makeshift blanket. But the camera could never convey the moment that truly mattered. When Caitlin, walking past after practice, stopped, turned, and made a decision that would change both their lives. It was 11:30 at night, the aftermath of a grueling double overtime game against the New York Liberty still coursing through her muscles. Her body aching despite having scored 32 points and tallied 11 assists. Yet the sting of a narrow 3-point defeat left her feeling hollow as the icy Indianapolis wind hit her face, lungs catching with the sting of winter, and in that nearly deserted parking area, as she gathered her bag and prepared to leave the arena, her eyes caught something that at first seemed like discarded clothing near the loading dock, but then it moved, and Caitlin's heart sank at the sight of a small hand emerging to adjust what looked like a crumpled poster. Stepping closer, she saw a boy, his face streaked with dried tears, wearing an oversized t-shirt from a community event and jeans torn at the knees. His shoes held together with duct tape, and wrapped around his fragile body was a poster of Caitlin herself from the previous season. A bitter irony that hit her hard. Here was someone calling her a hero while using her image to shield himself from the cold. Softly, she crouched down, lowering herself to his level and said, "Hey, buddy, you okay?" Marcus, as he finally whispered his name, flinched at first, pressing against the brick wall as terror and distrust flickered across his eyes. But recognition and hope soon softened them as he realized who stood before him. Caitlin, mindful of his fragility, gently asked if he had eaten, and when he shook his head, she offered to take him to a diner 2 blocks away, explaining calmly that nobody should be sleeping outside in February or using her poster as a blanket when she could help. The tiny boy hesitated, weighing the strangeness of her kindness against the lifetime of disappointments he had endured, but eventually, carefully folding the poster under his arm as though it were a treasure, he followed her in silence to Mel's diner, the warmth washing over him as they entered, and Caitlin guided him to a back booth, where he immediately scanned the menu with an intensity born not of hunger alone but of years of scarcity and the survival instincts of a child forced to grow up too quickly. Caitlin encouraged him to order freely, requesting pancakes, a cheeseburger with fries, grilled cheese, and chocolate milkshakes, the waitress's eyes widening as she took in the boy's thin frame in cautious excitement, sensing the gravity of the situation. And as the food arrived, Caitlin leaned in, gently coaxing Marcus to tell his story, and he whispered, barely audible above the diner's low hum, that his mother had died 8 months prior from cancer, that they had no insurance, that by the time it was discovered it had spread everywhere, and that his father had abandoned him as a baby, leaving him with an aunt who already had 3 children and limited resources, leaving him effectively alone in the world. Caitlin listened, her heart tightening at the raw, unfiltered grief in his voice, the resilience and bravery of a child who had been forced to shoulder unimaginable loss, and as Marcus described, sleeping on the streets, struggling to survive, and using the poster as his only source of comfort. Caitlin felt an overwhelming mix of sorrow, anger at a world that had failed him, and a fierce determination to do something that night, to show him that kindness and care could still exist. After their meal, she took him shopping for warm clothing, new shoes, and essential items, navigating the fluorescent, lit aisles while Marcus's eyes darted in awe at the abundance. The simple dignity of choice restored to a boy who had been denied even the basics. Over the following weeks, Caitlin arranged temporary housing, connected him with a social worker, and involved him in her foundation's youth programs, ensuring he could continue his education and feel the safety of a structured, supportive environment, all while maintaining his love for basketball by inviting him to practices and games, giving him the chance to develop both his skills and his confidence in a safe, encouraging space. Slowly, Marcus began to smile again, to speak openly about his feelings, to dream about the future rather than merely survive the present. And Caitlin witnessed the transformative power of empathy and attention, understanding that sometimes the most meaningful interventions are not grand gestures but moments of genuine recognition, of seeing someone as human, as worthy of care, attention, and protection. Months later, Marcus thrived, participating in a youth basketball league, building friendships, developing leadership qualities, and sharing his story with peers who had experienced loss. While Caitlin continued to mentor him, their bond a living testament to the way compassion, courage, and action can alter the trajectory of a life. And their story spread across social media not as a marketing spectacle, but because it resonated deeply with people, highlighting the profound truth that true heroism is measured not in points, trophies, or accolades, but in the courage to see a child in pain, to step into the moment with presence, to offer warmth, food, safety, and above all, dignity. And in doing so, Caitlin Clark not only saved a young boy from a night on the streets, but demonstrated to countless others that the greatest victories in sport and in life are those in which we choose to uplift, protect, and empower the vulnerable, proving that the impact of a single act of kindness can echo far beyond the initial encounter, shaping futures, restoring hope, and reminding us all that human compassion, when exercised without hesitation or calculation, has the power to heal wounds that might otherwise remain invisible and transform despair into the possibility of joy, stability, and belonging, creating a legacy that extends far beyond the confines of
27 minutes. There's Berger. Ran right into Joe.
The security camera footage from that February night captured a small figure huddled against the cold brick wall near Gamebridge Fieldhouse, no more than 9 years old, using a torn Indiana Fever poster as a makeshift blanket. But the cameras could never show the moment that truly mattered, when Caitlin Clark, exhausted from a grueling double overtime game against the New York Liberty, pushed through the player's exit at nearly midnight, muscles aching and mind still racing from the 32 points and 11 assists she had logged, noticed him, and instinctively stopped, crouched, and made a choice that would change both their lives. The boy, Marcus, was thin, shivering, his oversized t-shirt and duct-taped shoes inadequate against the February chill, his dark eyes wary and flickering with fear, and when Caitlin softly asked if he was okay, he recoiled, pressing against the wall, whispering fragments of his story. His mother had died 8 months prior from cancer. There had been no insurance, his father had abandoned him as a baby, and his aunt, overwhelmed with her own children, had not properly filed any guardianship, leaving him to drift through libraries, bus stations, under bridges, and finally outside the arena in the hope that the lights and cameras might offer some semblance of safety. Caitlin listened quietly as he recounted leaving home 3 weeks earlier, surviving in scraps, hiding from older kids, and sleeping wherever he could, his voice breaking yet steady with the resilience of a child who had learned to fend for himself too early. And as they walked to a nearby diner, the warmth hitting them as they entered, Marcus' eyes widened with disbelief and relief, his trembling hands grabbing a fork and finally tasting food that was more than mere sustenance but a symbol of care, trust, and safety. And Caitlin ordered generously, ensuring he had pancakes, a cheeseburger with fries, grilled cheese, and chocolate milkshakes, her calm encouragement, creating a space where Marcus could begin to trust again. And as he ate, she made plans, calling her teammate Kelsey Mitchell to arrange for Marcus to stay in her guest room that night, providing the first real bed he had slept in for 3 weeks. And the next morning Caitlin sprang into action, contacting social workers she knew through her foundation work, youth services, and even her own parents, ensuring that within 48 hours Marcus had proper guidance, support, and counseling to begin rebuilding stability in his young life. And through coordinated efforts it became clear that his aunt had simply assumed he had gone to another relative. And with Caitlin's assistance, financial support from local charities, and structured social work, Marcus was gradually reintegrated into a safe home. But the story deepened when a social worker discovered a photograph among his late mother Jennifer Hayes' belongings from 20 years earlier at a youth basketball camp in Des Moines, Iowa, where Caitlin herself, 10 years old, had attended her first organized basketball training. And in the picture, Jennifer, vibrant and smiling, knelt among children holding basketballs, with a gappy-toothed Caitlin beaming in the front row, and Marcus, looking at the photo, whispered that his mother had talked about Caitlin, how she had taught her a proper layup and would watch her games, instilling pride and hope in a child who had now found herself returning that care in the most literal sense. And over the following months Caitlin remained closely involved, visiting Marcus regularly, helping with school expenses, arranging basketball practice, games, and youth league participation, ensuring he had not just material support but a consistent presence of mentorship, compassion, and encouragement. While Marcus slowly began to trust, smile, and reclaim his childhood, playing basketball not out of obligation but out of joy, connecting to his mother's memory, to Caitlin's guidance, and to a community. And 6 months later, Caitlin formalized her efforts by establishing the Jennifer Hayes Foundation, named in honor of Marcus' mother, providing counseling, financial support, and family services for children who had lost parental care, giving them stability, opportunity, and hope. And at the launch event, Marcus confidently spoke, explaining that basketball, as his mother had taught him, was about teamwork, lifting each other up, and recognizing that the best assist is not one that leads to a basket but one that changes someone's life. And in the first year, the foundation raised significant funds, helping dozens of children, sparking conversations about those often invisible, struggling alone. And Caitlin kept the original framed poster Marcus had used for warmth that night in her home office. A constant reminder that being a hero is less about accolades and more about choosing to see people whom others overlook, to act decisively with empathy and care. And as the 1-year anniversary approached, Caitlin returned with Marcus to the very spot outside Gainbridge Fieldhouse where they first met, asking why he had chosen the arena that night, and Marcus, with a radiant smile now replacing the haunted expression of weeks before, said simply that his mother had told him good things happen to people who work hard, and he had hoped that by being close to Caitlin he might feel some of that goodness, some of the connection and reassurance that he was not alone. And Caitlin, asking softly if it had worked, saw in his eyes the validation of her efforts, the embodiment of every choice to stop, to see, to act, proving that human compassion, courage, and follow-through could transform lives, and that even small gestures, stopping to recognize a child, offering food, warmth, shelter, and trust, could ripple outward to create